we have Jacki Marsh, Mayor Jacki Marsh, Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shadduck-McNally. We're gonna ask, if this is a conversation, so please ask questions. And there is, of course, is one big topic that's happening in Loveland and in Larimer County right now that everybody is rightfully so hyper-focused on. But if you have questions or if you want to have a conversation about anything else, Loveland, Larimer County based, please don't hesitate to ask. We had a little bit of feedback from our last town hall that people had other questions and didn't know if it was appropriate to ask. So please do. But of course, the URA is, of course, on the table. So, does anybody want to start? Olivia Lowe is going to come around with this microphone, mainly so the people on Zoom can hear. You ready? All right.
Can I just start off real quick by just stating, Larimer County is represented by a board of 3 commissioners. We are elected by district. We have to live in each separate district, but the whole county votes for us at large. So I feel like I represent the entire county, and whether you live in a municipality or an unincorporated Larimer County, you are a resident of Larimer County, and I work hard to serve you. So I just want to kind of make it clear about that and the role of counties. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just thank the Loveland Voice for doing this. I started going to city council meetings back in 2014, and there were very few people in the back of the room with me. So to see the engagement of our community, both in our city council meetings, watching online, watching the archive meetings, showing up, is really, it's heartwarming to me, and I think we have a better community when we are engaged. So I appreciate you all being here, both virtually and in person. Thank you.
And I echo those comments. I started off as Mayor Marsh, sitting in the back of the room, trying to be a representative for the school district or the city. I actually went back when my kids were little, probably 2005 and 4, went to a city council meeting and made my first public comment, and they were not kind to my comment. And so it was really about having everybody work together and solve issues together, and wasn't well received. So I have worked really hard to become a county commissioner. I used to work volunteer on boards and commissions, and at a high level with the superintendent's office, the district accountability commission, the board's budget proposal team. So a lot of work I did in the community. I served on the Loveland Human Services Commission for many years, Office on Aging Advisory Council, and a lot of work as a nonprofit founder. But I started going to city county board meetings, board of commissioner meetings, the budget team meetings, the comprehensive plan, and that's how I began my 5-year journey to become a commissioner, because you can't just jump in this job without just kind of some kind of basis of knowledge and understanding the roles and some of the work that's being done. And so I think that it's really important to understand these are very complex roles, and we do our best to try to, we're not experts on everything, but we try to at least have a really good depth of knowledge so we can ask informed questions. But the mayor certainly has a lot more depth of knowledge in certain areas regarding metro districts and URAs than I do. So,
yeah, we have a first, okay.
All right, so questions.
Hi, Jody. So does state law allow you to kill the newly adopted URA?
As a board of commissioners, currently what is in place, I only have the actions that we have taken so far. That we have paused our negotiations as we've been waiting to find clarification on this HB 10-1107, which, as you know, has passed both houses. The House and the Senate is waiting for the governor's signature. And we have talked to the original bill sponsors, all 4 of them, and we have gotten that clarification. We are currently paused. We are, obviously, the council and group have voted to move forward. And right now, as I understand, it has been, I saw the email where we were copied, it was sent over to the assessor, and he has a 30-day period to look at whether or not he thinks that is a appropriate use of ag land. And that's where it's at right now.
So you're deferring to the assessor, or you're deferring to the governor's signature, but doesn't state law allow you to kill it?
State law does not allow us to have a role to have final say on that. We only have the ability to have consent over what we think this is.
So what is the newly adopted URA, how does it proceed without county consent?
They can, as you've seen, they can go forward still with the other 4 options through the plan, with the other agencies have consented, which is one of the other 4 options, and those other agencies have consented, and so they can go forward. The county has not consented to this being blighted ag land, so this is where we're at right now. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Little change on topic. Right now, the mental health facility, and this is for you, Jody, where do we stand on that currently?
One of my favorite things to talk about. I think you're warming me up here. Currently, thank you. First, let me just say, before I became a commissioner, I worked on the Behavioral Health Initiative, Mental Health Matters, back in 2018. That initiative had not passed the 2 times before, and there was a new team formed. I ran all over the county talking to folks, whether they're 2 or 200, about the importance of this. Thank you, Larimer County voters, for approving that tax. We have done a lot of great work. With that tax, it is a 20-year tax. It's 25 cents on $100. We have been we're almost done with phase 1. Phase 1 is building the Behavioral Health Center, which is the Larimer County Behavioral Health Services at Longview, which is a campus. It's a 40-acre campus between Loveland and Fort Collins, and that campus has our first building that is almost constructed, called the Acute Care Building. So that behavioral health tax, you can go to the Larimer County website, and there is a dashboard of suicides, overdoses, lots of information about what's going on in our county. We have, for the last 5 years, we started off with $1 million, and now during my tenure, we've taken it $2.8 million a year for grants that are accessible by the community. Those grants we try to get community, the entire county wide. We have one that's down in the Lyons Fire District, Estes Park Fire District, all the way up to Fort Collins. There's some here in Loveland, and they're throughout the whole county, and you have to apply for those annually. That grant cycle is opening up now. You can see how they were awarded, who they were awarded to, and we have a lot of great success because we asked for metrics. That's going to be changing in the next year with the end of phase 1. There will be a celebration at the end of this year in December. The public is invited, where we'll have information on the grantees, the programs, and we're so excited that we'll be opening our new behavioral health acute care services building at Trilby, and it's Wilson here in Loveland, Taft Hill, and Fort Collins, and that will open up in October. We're near the end. As you saw, the walls are up, the lights are going on. They have to kind of stop me from coming in all the time. I want to go take a tour every day. How's it going? How's it progressing? And it's really been an inspiring group. The construction workers are so inspired. They talk about all the time how important it is for them to work there. They realize this has a mission, and they feel really honored to be a part of it, and they've worked really hard. So we have partnered and did an RFP. Summerstone Health Partners is contracted through the county to provide services, and they will provide services within the Larimer County building. So I want to make sure that's clear. This is Larimer County Behavioral Health Services at Longview, with services provided by Summitstone. And there'll be 6 levels of care. We can't just open up with all 6 levels of care right off the bat. So this will be staged and tiered up. And of course, the first one will be that acute crisis or stabilization and that triage kind of area. And then there'll be all the way up to this highest level of care, which has some longer term beds. And so the public will have a chance to come tour and take a look and ask questions. And really excited, there will be a Loveland artist who is, we have, through an RFP process, contracted with a local Loveland artist to provide the sculpture out front, and it's called The Journey. So I welcome you all to come. More information will be on the website. I'm sure there'll be lots of press releases, but yes, it will be open before the end of the year, and we'll have all those 6 levels of care probably up and running before the end of the year.
I have a question on live from Wicked Glitch. Are the McWhinnies able to just go ahead with fracking now?
So I guess that's probably more of a city thing. As far as I know, they have applied for a permit for the east location, which is east of Kingston, which is east of Promenade. I don't think that that has been approved yet, but it is in the process. And then they pulled their permit application for the one that's along County Road 20 near our sports park. So can they go ahead? The one that is out east does not come before council because it falls within our criteria and can be approved administratively. In other words, the planning commission. So if COGCC does not, find fault with it, our planning commission could. That's my understanding. I don't have any other counselors here to verify that, but okay. The one on the one near the sports park, that one would have to come before council is my understanding because it does not meet our criteria for being X distance and things like that. It happens to lie in between our sports park. If you look at our sports park, the easternmost soccer field is about 2,200 feet from their eastern fence line. And I believe they'd have to stay 2,000 feet away. So if you could put a well pad right along that fence line, they might be able to stay away from 2,000 feet from the soccer field. But that then puts it well within 2,000 feet of our trailhead, which is further east along County Road 20, and we'll have a parking lot and a gathering place and stuff. That one I think would be a tougher battle to get COGCC to agree, and that one would have to come before council, is my understanding.
So if I might build on top of that, with all due respect.
Okay,
and you know
okay, no, if you know more than I do,
I
please
don't.
share it.
You are correct with what you're doing, but I just wanted to say, Senate Bill 181 was enacted in 2018, I believe, and it was, the focus switched to the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens, of the residents, instead of, kind of promoting the industry. And so when I became on a commissioner, it is part of 181 that local governments can go above and beyond the baseline of what the state is at. And Larimer County, that's one of the first things that we did as commissioners, was to up our game or up our standards from the base of the state. And so we have a lot more criteria. We worked long and hard on those. And some of those criteria are setbacks and leak detection and repair, financial assurances, all these things. We have a great new website. If you haven't been on there, it shows on the website, you can see an interactive website where the pads are at and how many barrels of oil they produce per year or per day. And we're trying to go after some of those are only producing like a barrel or less a day and see if we can actually incentivize those folks to stop production. And so I know the city has their rules, but they also, I don't think you have updated yours since the new 181. So I hope that maybe the city one day will look to update their standards.
Yeah.
And I know the mayor and I kind of align in some of those areas. And I'm not trying to criticize you. I'm just saying there is an opportunity for the city to engage in a process to listen to the residents. So.
And you're correct. The city has not updated it since 181 passed.
Thank you.
Was
answered. Thank you.
I have a question. A sincere question. I do not know the answer. There are kind of, pardon my allergies, rumors going around, or maybe misinformation or information that the city's general fund is going to have to make up for the URA in a sort of city backfill situation. Is that accurate, inaccurate? Do we know yet?
Okay,
Thank you.
So forming the URA, that portion is basically the city has offered to give up 100% of its property tax for 25 years. But just like the current Centerra, they call it the US 34 Crossroads Corridors, the official name of the Centerra URA plan, there are other agreements that go along, a master finance agreement. The current master finance agreement that was reached in 2004, it reduces the sales tax that the city collects in Centerra from our normal 3% to 1.75%. So we under-collect our sales tax in Centerra. And what that allows is for Centerra to charge a 1.25% public improvement fee, and then most of Centerra also charges a 1% retail sales fee. So I'm just guessing, but probably in 2004, people said you can't charge 3% and these other things because nobody has shopped there. So the city agreed to lower its sales tax to 1.75. I haven't seen it yet, but I believe what is coming is this Centerra South instead of collecting our 3% or even our 1.75%, the proposal is that we will only collect 1.25% sales tax. So there'd be no property tax and only 1.25% sales tax. So, this is my outlook on the topic in general is the city charges 9.564 mils on property tax. I think that's close to the figure, if not the exact figure. And then we charge 3% sales tax. And we collect all that. Most of that, it goes into our general fund. And from the general fund, we support our fire department, our police department, our road maintenance, building sidewalks, all the things that we all need, to have a city that has quality of life and public safety. So my argument is if we need that 9.5 mils and we need the 3%, we need that everywhere. Otherwise, we wouldn't collect it everywhere, correct? That's my logic, is that, okay, and we have many people who say we need to increase our sales tax because we're not collecting enough even at the 3%. Okay, so the argument then that you could have large areas of town that are collecting no property tax or reduced sales tax, that doesn't jive in my mind, because everywhere else, Orchard Shopping Center, the King Super and all that, those restaurants out in the southeast part of town. If we need that revenue to function as a city, then we need that revenue everywhere, is how I look at tax diversions and incentives. So.
Rob, you have a question?
Back on fracking for a second. This may be for both of you, all right? Because we have a county rep that knows what happened at the county. The city hasn't done anything with theirs in years. Does the county, quite honestly, I haven't been through the law in detail, so I'm going to ask Jody, I guess, to fill me in here. Do you guys have the right to set the standards such as you basically shut down fracking? In the past, under the old rules, you had no right to do that. But after the law was changed, where safety and health became the primary, can you do that?
There are some jurisdictions that do ban fracking within their jurisdiction. If you look at what City of Fort Collins basically just passed, it is going to be very small areas where they are able to frack. I don't know all the details of what Fort Collins just passed. We focus on the safety, health, and welfare of our residents. And so if you go to an extreme of banning, I think it's Bertha that bans, right? The town of Bertha bans. You have to have a lot of good things in place to do that and have a board that aligns to go that way. I would say that since Larimer County didn't even have any oil and gas regulations until the first set in 2018, I believe. We just wanted to take it up to that next step. In a lot of ways, we feel our regulations are kind of leading the state in a lot of ways. There are a lot of things we're still going to look to refine, but we have staff capacity and things like that. But there are ways that some jurisdictions use it to essentially ban fracking, and so I'm just saying it's a tool in the toolbox, but it's for each jurisdiction to kind of figure out where they're going to go with that.
Can you guys require an escrow account to close the well?
That is in our current regs.
Is it? Okay, good deal.
That's, I'll go back to 2018. The former county commissioners did not have oil and gas regs.
Nope.
So if people remember, there was an entity that wanted to frack very close to the sports park, a little bit more southeast of it, that wanted to, the well pad would have been in the county, but they would have been using city roads and city water and things like that. So I remember that kind of argument that we had going. There was nothing the county could do because they had no regulations. But one of the issues I brought up was the financial. If there's an event, how do you make people and property whole? And then how do you clean up and close and stuff? And so I'm very happy that that is a consideration now when the COGCC is approving. That entity that was trying to frack in Loveland, or the county officially in 2018, just was turned down by the COGCC because of financial insecurity. And so it's a real concern, that people need to be aware of. When you have some entities, whether they're big or small, that might not be able to compensate for property loss or loss of life or injury, those are big concerns. George?
Last question. Back to the URA and tax increment financing. We're looking at a diversion of taxes for 25 years, and this is going to affect everybody within the city of Loveland, all the citizens. And I'm looking at the process that the South Centerra is going through. I don't remember a lot of city-citizen interaction where citizens could talk to the council. Are there any places within the state where municipalities allow citizens to vote on this type of thing rather than having a small group of people make that decision?
Yeah, other cities have, and I don't have the list off the top of my head, but some cities have banned it. You can't do urban renewal. Some of it has to go to the voters. I think it would take a citizens initiative in Loveland. I do not foresee the current council being willing to put that on a ballot. I think the citizens would have to bring that to a ballot. Personally, I think when you're talking about diverting that kind of money over that period of time, it should be the voters that decide whether that's needed.
Would it have anything to do with changing the charter?
That could be, or the citizens could put an initiative
Just a
on
ballot
it that either you ban them completely or they must be voter approved. But you have to go out and get the signatures to get that on the ballot. But it is, other cities have done that.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more question.
Hi, Lyle Duncan. I'm a retired professional geologist. I've never worked in the oil and gas industry, but I have worked for decades in groundwater hydrology, and environmental pollution and cleanup.
Thank you.
Modern fracking techniques are safe. It is not really an issue. Decades ago, when it was new and they were refining, there were a few things that are in the wild willy, particularly shallow subsurface deaths. But currently, as practice, as guidelined through state, federal, EPA, both organizations I know well, hate them both, but in any case, talk about a bureaucracy. It is not really an issue. Whether they should be assessed for access to roads, things like that, very valid issues, I think. But as far as from a safety point of view, done under guidelines, it isn't an issue.
Thank you, and I totally respect your opinion. My wish would be that they would do it away from populated areas, away from schools and soccer fields and houses and places of worship, and away from where people gather. And there are incidences of fires and explosions that have happened. We all know of several. So things do happen, and so put it, a few miles away from populace would be my request. And because you can frack so far underground, that to me is a reasonable request. But totally respect your knowledge and your opinion.
The radius they're talking about, the 2,000 and such, those things, couldn't disagree more. I don't want it 100 feet away. I don't want a rig sitting there, 500 feet from my house drilling. We're allowing it. An air hammer rig will keep you awake.
And right now,
But within the guidelines, it's a safe practice.
yeah. And how the guidelines work right now is if the homes are already there, you can go within 500 feet. But if they're not there, let's see, am I doing that correctly? You have to think, one is 2,000 feet.
The reverse sentence.
It's reverse.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And ours are too, it depends how long
Yeah.
they have been
Yeah.
operating, so.
So if the well pad is there first, you can build homes up to 500 feet. If the well pad is there first.
Okay, I have two. One, I just want to ask before I forget about the mental health facility he asked. I was wondering if it's for the teenagers as well, or is it just for the adult that it's first opening for? Like, will there be spots for teenagers?
That's a great question. And it's one that I've been working on the last couple of years. So the crisis stabilization, we won't be turning people away. It's going to be open for all age areas. However, we'll have a very limited ability to serve youth long term. We are working very hard. The commissioners have committed over $10 million of our American Rescue Plan dollars to opening up as soon as we can. If it was my wish, I would break ground tomorrow. A building that will be completely focused right next door to adolescent care. Right now, and this is across the state, this is a regional issue, not just a Larimer County issue. We're sending folks to Montana, to Denver, to Will County, out of state, which is not best for their care. They're separated from their families or their loved ones, and so we want to build this building as soon as possible, but it will have the crisis stabilization for all ages and all abilities. We just won't have a long-term services that we'd like to have, and that's why we're pushing for this adolescent care building, which is already designed, shovel ready, and so we don't have, as we collect the sales tax, we put that in a pot so we can have the money to build. We don't want to, take out loans to build. We want to have the money ready to build, and we have been trying to apply for grants through the state. Those have so far been unsuccessful. We believe this is a great model. They haven't done much funding for things north of Denver, and we're hoping that I am looking for solutions so we can break ground as soon as possible, and we should have more information on that in the next few months because it is a need, but we are looking at the resources we can provide through the grant program to agencies and nonprofits throughout the county that can provide services to help youth where they're at. We're teaming up with the school districts for the first time ever in the last 2 years. All 3 school districts are working together and across boundaries, and that includes Estes Park. We've had 2 mental health summits with all the school districts and providers and commissioners and local electeds. I believe the mayor was there as well, where the county provided the ranch as a lower priced venue to bring. And now from that, Poudre School District had one youth health summit where they had the youth come and talk, and then I'm participating in the mental health task force, and we've had some meetings. We're trying to come up with actions we can implement now. We've talked and talked. I want to do something now. And so we're working on what we do now. And so we're also, what's happening is I sit on the Regional Opioid Abatement Council, which is through the settlement through the pharmaceutical companies to the states, and then the state gave us our region. There's, I think, 17 regions. We're region number 2. Larimer County is its own region. Other regions have 2 or 3 counties in them, and we have already put out almost we've allocated directly $2 million, and one of those is to the schools to help with training in this kind of innovative program to help with fentanyl use and opiate crisis in the schools, which is happening. And so we're going to be doing that soon, and that was also a focus of that group because there is that overlap. We do know, we have the data to show that there is a crisis. One other thing that we're supporting is the increase of co-responder program, and as you know, the Thompson school districts, Thompson raised their hand and said, hey, we want to do this in the schools, and there's a co-responder program with a clinician that started here in Thompson in November of last year, and they have seen tremendous success, but they are overwhelmed. There's just so much happening in the schools. So it's all of the above and trying to serve the youth in lots of different ways. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. Thank you. And then the real one, or another one, was so I found out there's a new branch of science now called domicology, I believe. Anyways, it's about abandoned buildings and how to deal with blight and kind of find repurposing and reusing what they have. And one thing they were talking about is when developers come in, very similar to what's happening here, is with the URA or the plans, the developer is also responsible for like the end of life of what they're building. They would be responsible for taking it down or making sure that it does not become blight or abandoned. So I connected with it because that's one thing that really bothers me is I feel like we keep building out there, and then when one fails, instead of repurposing those buildings, we just move to another section. And so I didn't know if the city had talked about anything quite like that.
No, there's nothing. And I think for me, part of the problem with the urban renewal, area that we talk about is it is intention to cure blight. It's intended for a downtrodden area of urban development to cure it and to prevent future. So it has a purpose, and it has a valid purpose when used appropriately. What has happened over time is it's been used for economic development. That's a different animal, and I think that's what you might be talking about. Somebody that has interest in helping support economic development in it's almost like sprawl. It's typically in an area that's away from your current, center. That's a different bill that somebody needs to propose and get passed by the State House and Senate. That's different. You should not be using urban renewal law for economic development. So to your point, then, do you include, just like you're including in oil and gas, the cleanup aspect, do you have in there that maybe you have to put money aside for redevelopment of that down the road if it becomes blighted itself? And I think in California you see a lot of malls that are turning into housing, and I think that might even be the proposal for a mall in Fort Collins now. That is becoming, we've talked about it before, COVID kind of accelerated the use of people shopping on the internet. Prior to COVID, people felt guilty spending their money on Amazon and things because they knew it was depriving your local businesses of needed revenue. Well, when COVID hit, it kind of created that acceptance of ordering, and it fit a need during the time of COVID, and it's, shopping is becoming more experiential than it is just a practical, and so it's a changed model that small businesses are going to have to adapt to.
Grand Resort / water park, and who owns that property?
This is, so the city kind of, and my recollection is we kind of encouraged Martin Lynn, the developer currently of the water park, to work with the county because they have land next to the Budweiser Center, the ranch. So I'll turn it over to Jody because currently, discussions are on hold with the city of Loveland pending.
And I just want to clarify that that was a question from our remote viewership. And
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The Larimer County has the Ranch Events Complex out at, they call it the Ranch or the Budweiser Event Center. Soon that will be called the Blue Arena, and we have some new things going on out there. The voters, thank you again, Larimer County voters, approved a renewal of the sales tax in 2017. Another sales tax that is going directly into that pot, just like the behavioral health money goes into the pot for only behavioral health, according to the ballot language that the voters approved. Those monies can only be spent in that way. It does not go in the general fund, it goes into that pot of money. The ranch has its own tax for a new master plan and helping it kind of get up to sustainability. So that was approved in 2017 by the voters. There is a master plan. When we came on as a board, we paused that because we came to realize some of the assumptions in the modeling were not maybe accurate, and so we had hired an outside agency to come back in and create an economic tool to have us really deep look at what can we afford, are we able to build out there, which is maybe not exactly what we had thought it was going to be in the beginning, because a lot of infrastructure things were maybe miscalculated and things. So we have a new tool, new plan, and as you first saw, that road has been re-engineered and put on the outside of the circle, and there will be not as much big traffic going there, and that's a lot for public safety, because if you've been in the Eagles game and everyone's walking back and forth and you're trying to drive out, it's a little bit dangerous. So that is going to change. There also is new buildings. If you haven't seen the 4-H building, if you see it up there over south or north of the event center, it's huge, it's great, and that will be focused on our youth and our 4-H program. On the south side of the campus, there's a private private company that owns that land in the city. They have approached us, and they did, it wasn't on the direction of the city. We'd already been having conversations before the city asked them to go talk to us. But we don't tend to, like, you know, our staff are talking, they're not big public meetings, and then they came and presented. So this was long, we were having these conversations long before the city had said, hey, well, go talk to the county about this. So that organization, what's the name of the company?
Well, it's Martin Lynn.
Martin, but the name of this company is?
Water Valley.
Water Valley, thank you. Water Valley came and their team approached us with a plan, with that master plan. You can go onto the Larimer County website for the Ranch Events Complex, and you can see all the plans and all the buildings and where they're going to be. South of the potentially new event center that we're looking at was a potential for a partnership for a company and a developer to build something on that other side, and maybe we could think of some ways to plan an outdoor space or something like that. And those plans we were presented, we've had some questions, our staff continued to talk. Those talks have gone silent. I don't know, to be honest with you, we have not heard any more discussion about that, and we're always open to having conversations, but that conversation has not been
dried up. Dried up, that's a
Olivia.
So that's where it's at. But I encourage you all to go on the website, and this year is the 140th anniversary of the Larimer County Fair and the 75th anniversary of the rodeo. And there's going to be, with the parade, you know, we have the parade downtown Loveland here. There will be an extra ending celebration for afterwards. When the parade's done, everyone usually go home. No, there's going to be a big party, and we're going to bring lots of other folks. And there'll be a lot of special events out at the ranch. It's for everyone. Please come check it out. This is our heritage. There's a lot of things for youth and a lot of community building. And go to the website and check out the master plan and all the cool things that are happening out at the ranch, because this is a community event space for all. And we have people like the chamber renting the spaces. We have the Behavioral Health Summit. There's a lot going on. And then check out our new sponsorship starting next year will be the Blue Arena. So
I'm getting messages from people for questions for you, if you don't mind. Okay, so this is a different subject. Somebody wants to know how we would go about, as a city, changing council pay.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I guess, okay.
You can hear better.
Okay. Some cities, like Fort Collins, if they want to increase what's typically called a stipend, they had to go to the voters, which they did a year ago, November, right? And they asked, I believe, for, I think it was 70 or 75% of the area median income for the mayor, and 70% for the mayor pro tem, and 65% for their city council members. So the voters overwhelmingly approved that. The city of Loveland, the current city council can do it on their own. That's in our charter. They can determine the pay. The way they have that safety net in there is that anybody currently on city council would not get the new pay. They would stay with the existing pay until they select to run for office again and be reelected. So nobody that votes for that pay increase would get it unless they run for reelection and are reelected. So that's kind of how the city of Loveland works. So it could be done fairly quickly by a majority voted city council. And I'll put in my 2 cents. I think you open the door for more people to run for office when you pay a part-time salary, because it is time consuming. It takes effort to read the agenda packets, to study, you serve on, so you have your Tuesday nights. We all know Tuesday nights are city council nights. The weekends are spent reading your packet, getting ready. But then there's about 26 boards and commissions that we divide up. And there's a council liaison for each and an alternate. So that's additional reading and preparation. So a part-time wage is appropriate, and I think you would have a more diverse, a more representative council if you did that.
And I'll just add on that commissioner salaries are determined by the state, since we're kind of an arm of the state. but we're on a local government, and so we don't have any say in that. That's voted on by the state legislature. Someone the other day asked me what my second job was. This is my full-time job. I'm putting in 50 to 70-hour weeks, and the last 3 weeks I've done something at least every day. Even if we're not, I usually am in an event, like yesterday I was planting over 600 trees up in the burn scar, but Mayor Marsh is correct, there's a lot of reading and a lot of, we have 30 boards and commissions for 3 commissioners, and we also have, the governor's appointed me to the Forest Health Council. We have others, committees, like I sit on the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority now, which has been a lot of time per week for me to read and catch up and be a part of. So it is a full-time job and then some.
How many hours a week or a month, however you want to average it, do you guess a new council member could plan on committing to?
Okay, so for new council members, you figure Tuesday night you're there from 6 to 10:30 minimum, correct? And then if you figure 3 hours over the weekend to read your packet, and packets can range from say 165 pages to 900 pages. Usually those larger packets are items that have come to council before. So as long as you're keeping up with the reading, when it comes the second or third or fourth time for reconsideration of different things, you really are just skimming through to see if there's been any changes. So it's not as massive as it sounds. And then again, there are 26 boards and commissions. Those commissions typically meet 1 day a month, and usually for an hour to an hour and a half. So for a new city council, I would say plan on 10 hours a week for your regular meeting, and then another couple of hours to be on one of the boards or commissions. Yeah.
There are 4 city council members who are up for election or re-election this fall. And are we able to identify any people who are willing to run against them? Is there anything other than an increase in the stipend that will bring people along? Jody, you mentioned all of the commissions and boards that you've served on over the years, and I know that Mayor has been busy that way as well. Is there a farm team out there? Do we have potential competition for the city council members whom we desperately want to get rid of?
Do you want to run?
So, anybody that talks to me that has an interest in running for any position, including somebody who wants to run for mayor, I am happy to spend as much time as that person is willing to spend with me to bring them up to speed on the issues. And I think that's the biggest handicap somebody running for office going against an incumbent has. You only know what you know, right? And you're not privy to, unless you print out the agenda packet yourself, you're not privy to all the information that is part of the week upon week upon week. So it's a matter of getting people up to speed so that they can engage the community and form their own opinions. I never try to tell somebody how to vote or how to think. Here's the information, you come to your own conclusions about what you think about something. So, in the past 2 elections, I spend time with any candidate that's willing to run. We typically meet once a week, Saturday or Sunday mornings, ask any questions you want. I'll answer them as truthfully as I know them to be. Seek other opinions, seek other information. But it comes down to a game of name recognition. When people have that ballot in front of them, the most familiar name is typically the one they're going to put a checkbox. New candidates do not have, a lot of financial support. So yard signs cost money. I don't know of any new candidate that can afford to do a postcard mailing to every resident in their ward. I have never had the money to do a postcard mailing to I run at large, the entire city. I have never had the money to do a postcard mailing to every resident in the city. It's insufficient funding, insufficient support. You have a very limited time to run, and there's a lot to get done. You need a campaign manager. You need somebody to help organize letters to the editor. You need to have somebody, help you set up meet and greet opportunities. Somebody to help you organize, dropping literature on doors. You need a lot of support, and there's a very small window of time to do it. So.
What is that window of time?
So you cannot put yard signs out any earlier than 90 days before the actual election. So if the election is November 2nd, August 2nd is the first time that you can put them out. That doesn't mean that so when you decide you want to run, you declare, and there's actually forms with the city that you have to file, and you need to do that within 10 days of making a public statement that you're going to run for one of the council seats. So you have 10 days. At that point, you can start collecting money. In fact, you set up your bank account, you set up your committee, you have to register all those with the city of Loveland. You can start raising money then. You can't put out signs, but you can be, starting to organize and buy signs. You just can't put them out yet and stuff. So, is there a farm? No, I'm willing to talk to anybody. I do believe all the wards and the mayor will be contested this year. I think there's a lot of interest, so I think that we'll see candidates in all. And it takes support. It takes support of the community.
Jess?
I have a question. It's just coming from me. It seems like the financial support of certain members has been very high.
Yes.
From entities that are hard to track down.
Political action committees.
Political action committees.
Yeah.
So how does that, at least what I see from my perspective, is that some candidates, such as yourself, run with very little contributions and win, and some run with a lot of money and lose. To be frank. How does that play into all of this, and what do we as a community need to understand about the role of political action committees in how our city is run?
Well, I certainly don't like political action committees, because it's dark money and you don't know who's donating. Is it self-serving? You don't know any of those things. So again, you can have a citizens initiative or council, to stop dark money in political action committees. But right now they're allowed. So when in your own individual campaign, you have to declare every I think it's $135 is what any one person is allowed to contribute. A couple could do twice that, so it's not like per resident, it's per person, not per household. I have been outspent in all 3 of my campaigns. So it's not just a money thing. It's getting, you want to come to your own opinion on things that matter. And I encourage people to look at some of the things that we voted on in the last year. And when you're out talking in a town hall, in a meet and greet in somebody's home, in their backyard, these are issues. My opponent voted this way. I would have voted that way as well for these reasons, or I would have voted differently. People want to know how you're going to vote. So you have to use real life issues that either have come before council or are coming, because we want to trust people. We want to know, I want you to know you're going to represent me. No one candidate is going to vote the way you want on every single issue. And so unless it's some very, very important issue to you, don't rule somebody out because on one thing they don't line up with you. Look at the whole package that a person, is. My donations have come from retirees, from teachers, from nurses, from just everyday people, and I'm honored to get those contributions. I myself would turn down any contribution from a developer or somebody that has a special interest. I have literally returned checks.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes.
Yeah?
So.
Can both of you speak? I understand that part of the URA process involves mediation. And I think there is a process where even the county may have to deal with a mediator one way or another, and there's some timing impacts involved, and it might be helpful if people understood that.
So the one thing that, right now the county assessor, was notified last week, and so he has 30 days to challenge the use of agricultural land in new Centerra South URA. I am not sure how it works. The way I read, and it's called it's Colorado State Statute 31-25-107. How I read it is all entities that tax an ad valorem tax have to consent. It doesn't say how you negotiate how much you share. It just says that if you're an entity that charges a property tax, you have to consent to ag land being included. I'm not sure how that plays in what is being tried here. I myself personally do not feel exemption E is in play. Exemption, I've talked to the sponsors of House Bill 101107. I've talked to co-sponsors. I've talked to people who voted for. I've read the transcripts of the hearings from 2010. And to me, it's very clear. Exemption E was put in there to make sure that any existing URAs already approved, already, developing, that they would not, it would not be retroactive. You would not cut off their funds. They would be able to continue with the 25-year clock. That is the only reason E is in there. There were days of debate in the Senate over, there were people that wanted to say, let's give people a 90-day window because it takes time to acquire the land. It takes time to come up with a plan. So there may be somebody who's very close to going to City Council with a request for a URA. We should give them a 90-day time period that they could fall into this and be grandfathered in. The Senate opted no because they thought there would be tons of people filing last-minute applications for a URA that truly weren't down the road in the plan, but they wanted to get in the window. So they opted no, 90-day window, but they didn't want to cut the legs off from a truly existing URA. That is what exemption E is. It is not a window to create a new URA from land that's currently in a URA. I believe that's a violation of the Colorado State Statute 312501.
Jackie, if I could add one thing. The question was on mediation, and when I read both legislation, and I think the Colorado Municipal League and several others have looked at that, and the way the law is written about mediation, it's so vague that nobody knows how that would work. The question is can a mediator force somebody to participate in a plan if they say no? How do they judge that? Who picks it? None of that is in the legislation. So that's another piece of legislation that could use a little bit more clarification.
I interpret the mediation as only, say, right now, this particular URA, although they've taken it out of the most recent version, wanted 60% of the property tax from the county. Now you have to understand the county, Loveland only charges 9.56, the county charges more. A lot of their money comes from county property taxes. So the mediation would have been, say, if the URA is wanting 60% and the county is saying we'll give up 15, that to me is what the mediation is, so that you come to common ground on the amount to be shared, not the consent of ag land being in a URA. But that's my interpretation, and the county and their attorney and everybody will have to work out.
Okay, so we have like 1 more minute.
1 minute.
Can you just real quick give us an idea of what's next in the URA world?
Well, 2 things. We need the governor to sign Senate Bill 23-273, which is the only intent of that is clarifying that exemption E. So total purpose of that particular bill that's been approved by the House and the Senate, we're waiting the governor's signature, and then the county assessor has 30 days to challenge.
And then there's a meeting next week of the Loveland Urban and Rural Authority. So,
What day, time?
I think it's the 15th.
Oh,
It's Tuesday.
yeah, it's a Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what's next.
awesome. Okay, anything else real quick?
It was mentioned that there are 4 entities that are given their nodding approval. What are those entities?
So you have the school district, which gives up the biggest of, they have the largest chunk of money. Their mills are 44 mills. So 27 of those mills are backfilled from the statewide education fund. Okay, so those 27 mills, it starts at 24 and works up to 27, those would go to the development and be backfilled to the school from the state. They're keeping the rest, the other 17 mills, my understanding is the school districts would keep, but I'm not an expert on that, so don't, quote me. Then the Thompson Health Services, which is our ambulance service, and then the pest control, mosquito control, I think.
Gateway.
Gateway, okay, those,
But the Gateway, Foothills Gateway, the Pest Control and Thompson Valley Emergency Services are a pass-through. They are not giving up any, that was part of their agreement, they're not giving up any property tax or mills, so they're just a pass-through.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks,
I have
everyone.
one more.
Of course you do.
I'm sorry. What about the fire department? I thought that our taxes were going to get raised to, because the fire department needed more money because it's being diverted to development.
so, you know, I want to tie those two together. The fire department is currently underfunded. It is, and we underpay our firefighters, and we're at risk of losing our firefighters to other entities that are able to pay more. Our fire chief back in January asked the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority to approve taking money out of their reserves to increase the pay of some of our firefighters so that we would not lose them before the city has completed its compensation study. And so I wouldn't associate the two. And so there is going to likely be an initiative on the November ballot asking voters to take our sales tax from 3% to 3.37, and all of that 0.37 would go to the fire department for specific, you know, projects, a training center, a fire.
Can change that?
What?
Nobody on the council can change the direction of the money?
No, it would be dedicated, and the bigger question, and it's been addressed, and I'm not an attorney, so I won't try to be, but you know, one of my concerns was, well, then you don't decrease what the city is currently giving. You can't do bait and switch, you can't switch, and I've been assured that that's not the case, that what the city currently contributes, which is about 82% of what the fire department needs, that would continue, and this would be new money coming in. They want to build a training facility, you know, for training firefighters on how to fight fires, as well as compensation and fire trucks. We are underfunded, our fire department. Yes.
But isn't that an argument against this URA, that this is precisely why we don't want all this money getting signed off, because we could be paying for these services?
That's always been my argument, and it's not just this URA, it's the current URA, it's the you know, the tax initiative, you know, the tax incentive we gave Jacks. It's a lot of the things that we do that I think are unnecessary. I'll use Amazon as an example. They came in, they paid us, I believe, $16 million in permit and use tax, no incentives. Chilson Stroh is the property next door to Centerra South, no incentives, no URA, no metro districts. You know, I don't believe Loveland needs to give away these kind of funds.
Well, and I have another question about the money.
Yeah.
I'm really obsessed with
Okay.
Just, so we're sort of in purgatory right now because you guys are on hold. Thank you very much. And, you know, we just don't know how this thing's going to end. But is any of this money already going towards them? There's no chunks of money given at the front end of this to the developers, or?
If it runs like other things run, then you could look at the current development. The developer fronts a lot of the money, and they bond later. You know, and that's been true of the current Centerra. That's true of metro districts around the city. And in fact, there have been a couple of meetings when somebody's asking for a metro district. I'll ask them, at what point are you actually going to bond? And they say, well, after the development is built. And it's like, then why do you need the bonds? Just build that cost into the cost of the building or the home. You know, that's just logical, right? And so one of the things that you look for are called developer advances. And that's where they have fronted the money up front, and then years down the road, they'll repay themselves. You know, so, you know, it's, again, when you're talking about revenue bonds, you know, think about, now that's not the URA diverting property taxes, but think about revenue bonds. Where's the revenue? You have to have a source of revenue. Well, the revenue is the property taxes, the metro fees that are charged with your property taxes. That's the revenue. So how do you get money for a building that doesn't exist? That's why there's kind of this delay, is, you know, you bond later. That's not the URA. That begins diverting property taxes year one. And that is dedicated to repay the debt on the infrastructure.
Okay. I think that's it.
We're
I'm
over
sure
time.
Now
that
it's
Jackie,
raining.
yeah, no, I'm sure Jackie and Jody would be happy to chat, you know, for a few minutes. If you have any questions you want to speak to.
I had one thing I wanted to share. For a lot of you that don't know, I was born and raised around this area, and my mom was born on a farmhouse east of Berthoud, but I brought my prom dress that I bought downtown Loveland, right down here, and this has been in my closet. I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and it was unique, and the sales ladies at the store were so wonderful and helped me pick this out, because my mother was in bed recovering from pneumonia. My dad dropped me off downtown and went to the bookstore and said, go get a dress. And so here's my dress for my junior prom, and it was more of a purplish pink color, but it's kind of faded. But I just wanted to tell you how I have been shopping and dealing with downtown businesses in Loveland since I was 16 years old. So
It's lovely. Okay, thanks everyone, and don't forget, you can support us on Patreon, Venmo, Cold Hard Cash, whatever you have. And grab a button on your way and leave us your email address if you could, and just thanks for supporting us. Do you have anything, Jess?
No, I'm really grateful to Commissioner Shadduck-McNally and Mayor Marsh and all of you for being here. These conversations are a big part of what we want to do with the Loveland Voice, and I think they're important. I'm glad you're all here. Also, we're trying to expand. We're basically expanding to the extent that we can, while also earning a living. So outside of this, we are expanding letters to the editor opportunities with the Loveland Voice. We don't have the reach that the Reporter Herald has necessarily
Yet,
but we are an outlet, and we're also going to expand into essays as well. So essays about Loveland and life in Loveland. So keep in touch, follow us. Thank you for being here.
and reach out with any feedback or
Yeah.
ideas, that kind of stuff, please.
Thank you.